Hello everyone. And since this is my last day of streaming before Saturday, I will just say Merry Christmas to everyone now. Merry Christmas to everyone who's celebrating. Um, Allow me to also test if my overlay is on, which it shouldn't be yet, actually. Let me fix that. Test. Is it on? Yes, it's all working. Good. I'm happy to see that. Hello, Mark on hello in my room and hello in chat as well. Um, so for today, we'll be reading the last two chapters and a few pages that we have left from Stave 3 from A Christmas Carol. I think I will start with that. I still have some cluttering to add into Palia as well, but I think, I'll use Palia as a break from reading so that my voice doesn't get very, very rough. But I will be going to the Winterlights plot for this. The house is almost ready. Almost ready. Just needs a little bit more clutter here and there. Okay. I hope everyone's holiday preparations are going well. I know it can be a time of stress as well. Not just joy. It is also joy, but also stress and sometimes negative emotions too. Like holidays are not happy for everyone. And I feel like it is important to acknowledge that. But maybe I'll talk about that a little bit later. Let's get into our cozy reading first and foremost. Is the okay, I just realized that I had the sound lowered. So there you go. I fixed it now. There should be sound coming from Palia anytime now. I think it's the break in the song, sometimes the song actually quiets down and then starts again. Is it? Well, there is clearly sound. Okay, let me see exactly where I left off. So maybe who those people who haven't been to the previous streams, this is the book. Let me show you. This is the book that we're reading from. And okay, let's see. Mm, Let me see exactly because this is very description dense where we left off. Yeah, I remember it was them seeing the lighthouse. And even the people on the ship were, making merry for Christmas. And every man on board, waking or sleeping, good or bad, had had a kinder word for one another on that day than on any day in the year, and had shared to some extent in its festivities, and had remembered those he cared for at a distance, and had known that they delighted to remember him. This is where we left off. It was a great surprise to Scrooge, while listening to the moaning of the wind and thinking what a solemn thing it was to move on through the lonely darkness over an unknown abyss, whose depths were secrets as profound as death. We read this part as well. Um, It was a great surprise to Scrooge, while thus engaged, to hear a hearty laugh. It was a much greater surprise to Scrooge to recognize it as his own nephew's, and to find himself in a bright, dry, gleaming room, with the Spirit standing smiling by his side, and looking at that same nephew with approving affability. This is exactly the point where we left off. "Ha ha!" laughed Scrooge's nephew. "Ha ha ha! If you should happen, by any unlikely chance, to know a man more blessed in a laugh than Scrooge's nephew, all I can say is, I should like to know him too. Introduce him to me, and I'll cultivate his acquaintance. It is a fair, even-handed, noble adjustment of things that, while there is infection in disease and sorrow, there is nothing in the world so irresistibly contagious as laughter and good humor. When Scrooge's nephew laughed in this way, holding his sides, rolling his head, and twisting his face into the most extravagant contortions, Scrooge's niece, by marriage, laughed as heartily as he, and their assembled friends, being not a bit behindhand, roared out lustily. "He said that Christmas was a humbug, as I live," cried Scrooge's nephew. "He believed it, too." "More shame to him, Fred," said Scrooge's niece indignantly. "Bless those women. They never do anything by halves. They are always in earnest." She was very pretty, exceedingly pretty, with a dimpled, surprised-looking capital face, a ripe little mouth that seemed made to be kissed, as no doubt it was, all kinds of good little dots about her chin that melted into one another when she laughed, and the sunniest pair of eyes you ever saw in any little creature's head. Altogether, she was what you would have called provoking, you know, but satisfactory too. Oh, perfectly satisfactory. "He's a comical old fellow," said Scrooge's nephew. "That's the truth, and not so pleasant as he might be. However, his offenses carry their own punishment, and I have nothing to say against him." "I'm sure he's very rich, Fred," hinted Scrooge's niece. "At least, you always tell me so." "What of that, my dear?" said Scrooge's nephew. "His wealth is of no use to him. He don't do any good with it. He don't make himself comfortable with it. He hasn't the satisfaction of thinking that he is ever going to benefit us with it." "I have no patience with him," observed Scrooge's niece. Scrooge's niece's sisters and all the other ladies expressed the same opinion. "Oh, I have," said Scrooge's nephew. "I'm sorry for him. I couldn't be angry with him if I tried. Who suffers by his ill whims? Himself, always. Here he takes it to his head to dislike us, and he won't come and dine with us. What's the consequence? He don't lose much of a dinner." "Indeed, I think he loses a very good dinner," interrupted Scrooge's niece. "Everybody else said the same, and they must be allowed to have been competent judges because they had just had dinner, and with the dessert upon the table were clustered round the fire by lamplight." "Well, I'm very glad to hear it," said Scrooge's nephew, "because I haven't any great faith in these young housekeepers. What do you say, Topper?" Topper had clearly got his eye upon one of Scrooge's niece's sisters, for he answered that a bachelor was a wretched outcast, who had no right to express an opinion on the subject. Whereas Scrooge's niece's sister, the plump one with the lace tucker, not the one with the roses, blushed. "Do go on, Fred," said Scrooge's niece, clapping her hands. "He never finishes what he begins to say. He's such a ridiculous fellow." Scrooge's nephew revelled in another laugh, and as it was impossible to keep the infection off, though the plump sister tried hard to do it with aromatic vinegar, his example was unanimously followed. "I was only going to say," said Scrooge's nephew, "that the consequence of his taking a dislike to us, and not making merry with us, is, as I think, that he loses some pleasant moments which could do him no harm. I am sure he loses pleasanter companions than he can find in his own thoughts, either in his mouldy old office or his dusty chambers. I mean to give him the same chance every year, whether he likes it or not, for I pity him. He may rail at Christmas till he dies, but he can't help thinking better of it. I defy him, if he finds me going there in good temper year after year and saying, 'Uncle Scrooge, how are you?' If it only puts him in the vein to leave his poor clerk £50, that's something, and I think I shook him yesterday." It was their turn to laugh now at the notion of his shaking Scrooge, but being thoroughly good-natured and not much caring what they laughed at, so that they laughed at any rate, he encouraged them in their merriment and passed the bottle joyously. After tea they had some music, for they were a musical family and knew what they were about when they sung a glee or catch, I can assure you, especially Topper, who could growl away in the bass like a good one, and never swell the large veins in his forehead or get red in the face over it. Scrooge's niece played well upon the harp, and played, among other tunes, a simple little air, a mere nothing, you might learn to whistle it in 2 minutes, which had been familiar to the child who fetched Scrooge from the boarding school, as he had been reminded by the ghost of Christmas past. When this strain of music sounded, all the things that ghost had shown him came upon his mind. He softened more and more, and thought that if he could have listened to it often years ago, he might have cultivated the kindnesses of life for his own happiness with his own hands, without resorting to the sexton's spade that buried Jacob Marley. But they didn't devote the whole evening to music. After a while they played at forfeits, for it is good to be children sometimes, and never better than at Christmas, when its mighty founder was a child himself. Stop, there was a game at blindman's buff. Of course there was, and I no more believe Topper was really blind than I believe he had eyes in his boots. My opinion is that it was a done thing between him and Scrooge's nephew, and that the ghost of Christmas present knew it. The way he went after the plump sister and the lace tucker was an outrage on the credulity of human nature, knocking down the fire irons, tumbling over the chains, bumping up against the piano, smothering himself amongst the curtains. Wherever she went, there went he. He always knew where the plump sister was. He couldn't catch anybody else. If you had fallen up against him, as some of them did, on purpose, he would have made a feint of endeavoring to seize you, which would have been an affront to your understanding, and would instantly have sidled off in the direction of the plump sister. She often cried out that it was unfair, and it really was not. But when at last he caught her, when, in spite of all her silken rustlings and her rapid flutterings past him, he got into a corner whence there was no escape, then his conduct was the most execrable. For his pretending not to know her, his pretending that it was necessary to touch her headdress, and further to assure himself of her identity by pressing a certain ring upon her finger and a certain chain about her neck, was vile, monstrous. No doubt she told him her opinion of it when, another blind man being in office, they were so very confidential together behind the curtains. And I will show you a picture of this. If you can see it, it's an illustration that says the way he went after that plump sister and the lace tucker. I don't know if it's visible at all because this is just like gray. That's it. Scrooge's niece was not one of the blind man's buff party, but was made comfortable with a large chair and a footstool, and a snug corner where the ghost and Scrooge were close behind her. But she joined in the forfeits, and loved her love to admiration with all the letters of the alphabet. Likewise, at the game of how, when, and where she was very great, and to the secret joy of Scrooge's nephew, beat her sisters hollow, though they were sharp girls too, as Topper could have told you. There might have been about 20 people there, young and old, but they all played, and so did Scrooge, for, wholly forgetting in the interest he had in what he was going on, that his voice made no sound in their ears, he sometimes came out with his guess quite loud, and very often guessed right, too, for the sharpest needle, best Whitechapel, warranted not to cut in the eye, was not sharper than Scrooge, blunt as he took it in his head to be. The ghost was greatly pleased to find him in this mood, and looked upon him with such favor that he begged like a boy to be allowed to stay until the guests departed. But this the spirit said could not be done. "Here is a new game," said Scrooge. "1 half-hour, Spirit, only one." It was a game called Yes and No, where Scrooge's nephew had to think of something, and the rest must find out what. He only answering to their questions yes or no, as the case was. The brisk fire of questioning to which he was exposed elicited from him that he was thinking of an animal, a live animal, rather a disagreeable animal, a savage animal, an animal that growled and grunted sometimes, and talked sometimes, and lived in London, and walked about the streets, and wasn't made a show of, and wasn't led by anybody, and didn't live in a menagerie, and was never killed in a market, and was not a horse, or an ass, or a cow, or a bull, or a tiger, or a dog, or a pig, or a cat, or a bear. At every fresh question that was put to him, this nephew burst into a fresh roar of laughter, and was so inexpressibly tickled that he was obliged to get off the sofa and stamp. At last, the plump sister, falling into a similar state, cried out, "I have found it now. I know what it is, Fred. I know what it is." "What is it?" cried Fred. "It's your Uncle Scrooge." Which it certainly was. Admiration was the universal sentiment, though some objected that the reply to "Is it a bear?" ought to have been yes, inasmuch as an answer in the negative was sufficient to have diverted their thoughts from Mr. Scrooge, supposing they had ever had any tendency that way. "He has given us plenty of merriment, I am sure," said Fred, "and it would be ungrateful not to drink his health. Here is a glass of mulled wine ready to our hand at the moment, and I say, Uncle Scrooge." "Well, Uncle Scrooge," they cried. "A Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year to the old man, wherever he is," said Scrooge's nephew. "He wouldn't take it from me, but may he have it nevertheless. Uncle Scrooge." Uncle Scrooge had imperceptibly become so gay and light of heart that he would have pledged the unconscious company in return, and thanked them in an inaudible speech, if the Ghost had given him time. But the whole scene passed off in the breath of the last word spoken by his nephew, and he and the Spirit were again upon their travels. Much they saw, and far they went, and many homes they visited, but always with a happy end. The Spirit stood beside sick beds, and they were cheerful; on foreign lands, and they were close at home; by struggling men, and they were patient in their greater hope; by poverty, and it was rich; in almshouse, hospital, and gaol; in misery's every refuge, where vain man in his little brief authority had not made fast the door, and barred the Spirit out, he left his blessing, and taught Scrooge his precepts. It was a long night, if it were only a night, but Scrooge had his doubts of this, because the Christmas holidays appeared to be condensed into the space of time they passed together. It was strange, too, that while Scrooge remained unaltered in his outward form, the Ghost grew older, clearly older. Scrooge had observed this change, but never spoke of it until they left the children's Twelfth Night party, when, looking at the Spirit as they stood together in an open place, he noticed that its hair was grey. "Are spirits' lives so short?" asked Scrooge. "My life upon this globe is very brief," replied the Ghost. "It ends tonight." "Tonight!" cried Scrooge. "Tonight at midnight. Hark! The time is drawing near." The chimes were ringing the 3/4 past 11 at that moment. "Forgive me if I am not justified in what I ask," said Scrooge, looking intently at the Spirit's robe, "but I see something strange and not belonging to yourself, protruding from your skirts. Is it a foot? Or a claw?" "It might be a claw, for the flesh there is upon it," was the Spirit's sorrowful reply. "Look there." From the foldings of its robe it brought 2 children. Wretched, abject, frightful, hideous, miserable. They knelt down at its feet, and clung upon the outside of its garment. "Oh, man, look here! Look, look, down here!" exclaimed the Ghost. They were a boy and a girl, yellow, meagre, ragged, scowling, wolfish, but prostrate too in their humility. Where graceful youth should have filled their features out and touched them with its freshest tints, a stale and shriveled hand, like that of age, had pinched and twisted them and pulled them into shreds. Where angels might have sat enthroned, devils lurked, and glared out menacing. No change, no degradation, no perversion of humanity in any grade, though all the mysteries of wonderful creation has monsters half so horrible and dread. Scrooge started back, appalled. Having them shown to him in this way, he tried to say that they were fine children, but the words choked themselves rather than be parties to a lie of such enormous magnitude. "Spirit, are they yours?" Scrooge could say no more. "They are man's," said the Spirit, looking down upon them, "and they cling to me, appealing from their fathers. This boy is ignorance, this girl is want. Beware of them both, and all of their degree, but most of all beware this boy, for on his brow I see that written which is doom, unless the writing be erased. Deny it," cried the Spirit, stretching out its hand towards the city. "Slander those who tell it ye. Admit it for your factitious purposes, and make it worse, and bide the end." "Have they no refuge or resource?" cried Scrooge. "Are there no prisons?" said the Spirit, turning on him for the last time with his own words. "Are there no workhouses?" The bell struck 12. Scrooge looked about him for the ghost, and saw it not. As the last stroke ceased to vibrate, he remembered the prediction of old Jacob Marley, and lifting up his eyes, beheld a solemn phantom, draped and hooded, coming like a mist along the ground towards him. And here is the illustration of the next chapter, which is the last spirit. Again, it's so hard to make out. To be fair, even as I'm looking at the book, it's really hard to make out like what everything is because of the art style that it's drawn with. Allow me to have some water and then we will continue. We will read for as long as I can go on for, and then we will take a break doing some Palia, and then we'll come back to the reading. So, stave 4, the last of the spirits. The phantom slowly, gravely, silently approached. When it came near him, Scrooge bent down upon his knee, for in the very air through which this spirit moved, it seemed to scatter gloom and mystery. It was shrouded in a deep black garment, which concealed its head, its face, its form, and left nothing of it visible, save one outstretched hand. But for this, it would have been difficult to detach its figure from the night and separate it from the darkness by which it was surrounded. He felt that it was tall and stately when it came beside him, and that its mysterious presence filled him with a solemn dread. He knew no more, for the spirit neither spoke nor moved. "I am in the presence of the ghost of Christmas yet to come," said Scrooge. The spirit answered not, but pointed onward with his hand. "You are about to show me shadows of the things that have not happened, but will happen in the time before us," Scrooge pursued. "Is that so, spirit?" The upper portion of the garment was contracted for an instant in its folds, as if the spirit had inclined his head. That was the only answer he received. Although well used to ghostly company by this time, Scrooge feared the silent shape so much that his legs trembled beneath him, and he found that he could hardly stand when he prepared to follow it. The spirit paused a moment, as observing his condition, and giving him time to recover. But Scrooge was all the worse for this. It thrilled him with a vague, uncertain horror to know that, behind the dusky shroud, there were ghostly eyes intently fixed upon him, while he, though he stretched his own to the outmost, could see nothing but a spectral hand and one great heap of black. "Ghost of the future," he exclaimed, "I fear you more than any spectre I have seen. But as I know your purpose is to do me good, and as I hope to live to be another man from what I was, I am prepared to hear you company. I am prepared to bear you company, and do it with a thankful heart. Will you not speak to me?" It gave him no reply. The hand was pointed straight before them. "Lead on," said Scrooge, "lead on. The night is waning fast, and it is precious time to me, I know. Lead on, spirit." The phantom moved away as it had come towards him. Scrooge followed in the shadow of its dress, which bore him up, he thought, and carried him along. They scarcely seemed to enter the city, for the city rather seemed to spring up about them and encompass them of its own act. But they were in the heart of it, on 'change amongst the merchants, who hurried up and down the and chinked the money in their pockets, and conversed in groups, and looked at their watches, and trifled thoughtfully with their great gold seals, and so forth, as Scrooge has seen them often. The spirit stopped beside one little knot of businessmen. Observing that the hand was pointed to them, Scrooge advanced to listen to their calls. "No," said a great fat man with a monstrous chin, "I don't know much about it either way. I only know he's dead." "When did he die?" inquired another. "Last night, I believe." "Why, what was the matter with him?" asked a third, taking a vast quantity of snuff out of a very large snuff-box. "I thought he'd never die." "God knows," said the first with a yawn. "What has he done with his money?" asked a red-faced gentleman with a pendulous excrescence at the end of his nose that shook like the gills of a turkey cock. I haven't heard, said the man with the large chin, yawning again. Left it to his company, perhaps. He hasn't left it to me, that's all I know. This pleasantry was received with a general laugh. It's likely to be a very cheap funeral, said the same speaker, for upon my life, I don't know of anybody to go to it. Suppose we make up a party and volunteer? I don't mind going if a lunch is provided, observed the gentleman with the excrescence on his nose. But I must be fed if I make one. Another laugh. Well, I am the most disinterested among you, after all, said the first speaker, for I never wear black gloves and I never eat lunch. But I'll offer to go if anybody else will. When I come to think of it, I'm not at all sure that I wasn't his most particular friend, for we used to stop and speak whenever we met. Bye bye. Speakers and listeners strolled away and mixed with other groups. Scrooge knew the men and looked towards the spirit for an explanation. The phantom glided on into a street. Its finger pointed to two persons meeting. Scrooge listened again, thinking that the explanation might lie there. He knew these men also perfectly. They were men of business, very wealthy, and of great importance. He had made a point always of standing well in their esteem, in a business point of view, that is, strictly in a business point of view. How are you? Said one. How are you? Returned the other. Well, said the first, Old Scratch has got his own at last, hey? So I am told, returned the second. Cold, isn't it? Seasonable for Christmas time. You are not a skater, I suppose? No, no, something else to think of. Good morning. Not another word. That was their meeting, their conversation, and their parting. And here, um, I will show you this illustration because I feel like it's one of the ones that you can maybe make out what it is. So it's like a almost like an imagery of the devil, I guess. That's how they show the Phantom this time. And there's Scrooge here with like he has like some sacks filled with gold. I believe it's money. It has to be money. And then they're observing the gentleman meeting. I think this is one of the better illustrations because you can clearly tell what's going on. Um, Scrooge was at first inclined to be surprised that the spirit should attach importance to conversations apparently so trivial, but feeling assured that they must have some hidden purpose, he set himself to consider what it was likely to be. They could scarcely be supposed to have any bearing on the death of Jacob, his old partner, for that was past, and this ghost province was the future. N- Nor could he think of any one immediately connected with himself to whom he could apply them, but nothing doubting that, to whomsoever they applied, they had some latent moral for his own improvement. He resolved to treasure up every word he heard and everything he saw, and especially to observe the shadow of himself when it appeared, for he had an expectation that the conduct of his future self would give him the clue he missed, and would render the solution of these riddles easy. I like how he's kind of looking at this in a very rational way, right? Very like trying to make sense of everything with, his brain. He looked about in that very place for his own image, but another man stood in his accustomed corner, and though the clock pointed to his usual time of day for being there, he saw no likeness of himself among the multitudes that poured in through the porch. It gave him little surprise, however, for he had been revolving in his mind a change of life, and thought and hoped he saw his new-born resolutions carried out in this. Quiet and dark, beside him stood the phantom with its outstretched hand. When he roused himself from his thoughtful quest, he fancied, from the turn of the hand and its situation in reference to himself, that the unseen eyes were looking at him keenly. It made him shudder and feel very cold. They left the busy scene and went into an obscure part of the town where Scrooge had never penetrated before, although he recognized its situation and its bad repute. The ways were foul and narrow, the shops and houses wretched, the people half naked, drunk, and slipshod? I don't know that word. Ugly. Alleys and archways, like so many cesspools, disgorged their offences of smell and dirt and life upon the straggling streets, and the whole quarter reeked with crime, with filth and misery. Far in this den of infamous resort, there was a low-browed beetling shop below a penthouse roof where iron, old rags, bottles, bones, and greasy offal were brought. Upon the floor within were piled up heaps of rusty keys, nails, chains, hinges, files, scales, weights, and refuse iron of all kinds. Secrets that few would like to scrutinize were bred and hidden in the mountains of unseemly rags, masses of corrupted fat, and sepulchres of bones. Sitting in among the wares he dealt in, by a charcoal stove made of old bricks, was a grey-haired rascal, nearly 70 years of age, who had screened himself from the cold air without by a frowsy containing of miscellaneous tatters hung upon a line, and smoked his pipe in all the luxury of calm retirement. Scrooge and the Phantom came into the presence of this man, just as a woman with a heavy bundle slunk into the shop, but she had scarcely entered when another woman, similarly laden, came in too, and she was closely followed by a man in faded black, who was no less startled by the sight of them than they had been upon the recognition of each other. After a short period of blank astonishment, in which the old man with the pipe had joined them, they all three burst into a laugh. "Let the charwoman alone to be the first," cried she who had entered first. "Let the laundress alone to be the second, and let the undertaker's man alone to be the third. Look here, old Joe, here's a chance. If we haven't all three met here without meaning it. You couldn't have met in a better place," said old Joe, removing his pipe from his mouth. "Come into the parlor. You were made free of it long ago, you know, and the other two ain't strangers. Stop till I shut the door of the shop. Ah, how it squeaks! There ain't such a rusty bit of metal in the place as its own hinges, I believe, and I'm sure there's no such old bones here as mine. Ha! We're all suitable to our calling. We're well matched. Come into the parlor. Come into the parlor." The parlor was the space behind the screen of rags. The old man raked the fire together with an old stair rod, and having trimmed his smoky lamp, for it was night, with the stem of his pipe, put it into his mouth again. While he did this, the woman who had already spoken threw her bundle on the floor, and sat down in a flaunting manner on a stool, crossing her elbows on her knees, and looking with a bold defiance at the other two. "What odds, then? What odds, Mrs. Dilber?" said the woman. "Every person has a right to take care of themselves. He always did." "That's true indeed," said the laundress. "No man more so." "Why, then, don't stand staring as if you was afraid, woman. Who's the wiser? We're not going to pick holes in each other's coats, I suppose." "No, indeed," said Mrs. Dilber and the man together. "We should hope not." "Very well, then," cried the woman. "That's enough. Who's the worse for the loss of a few things like this? Not a dead man, I suppose." "No, indeed," said Mrs. Dilber, laughing. "If he wanted to keep 'em after he was dead, a wicked old screw," pursued the woman, "why wasn't he natural in his lifetime? If he had been, he'd have had somebody to look after him when he was struck with death, instead of lying gasping out his last there alone by himself." "It's the truest word that ever was spoke," said Mrs. Dilber. "It's a judgment on him." "I wish it was a little heavier judgment," replied the woman, "and it should have been, you may depend upon it, if I could have laid my hands on anything else. Open that bundle, old Joe, and let me know the value of it. Speak out plain. I'm not afraid to be the first, nor afraid for them to see it. We know pretty well that we were helping ourselves before we met here, I believe. It's no sin. Open the bundle, Joe." So this is an illustration that says, "What do you call this?" said Joe. "Bed curtains." So they're basically plundering, I guess, um, the house of the dead man, whom I believe at this point we should all know who that is, but he doesn't know it himself. So, okay. But the gallantry of her friends would not allow of this, and the man in faded black, mounting the breach first, produced his plunder. It was not extensive. A seal or two, a pencil case, a pair of sleeve buttons, and a brooch of no great value were all. They were severally examined and appraised by old Joe, who chalked the sums he was disposed to give for each upon the wall, and added them into a total when he found that there was nothing more to come. "That's your account," said Joe, "and I wouldn't give another sixpence if I was to be boiled for not doing it. Who's next?" Mrs. Dilber was next. Sheets and towels, a little wearing apparel, two old-fashioned silver teaspoons, a pair of sugar tongs, and a few boots. Her account was stated on the wall in the same manner. "I always give too much to ladies. It's a weakness of mine, and that's the way I ruin myself," said old Joe. "That's your account. If you asked me for another penny and made it an open question, I'd repent of being so liberal and knock off half a crown." "And now undo my bundle, Joe," said the first woman. Joe went down on his knees for the greater convenience of opening it, and, having unfastened a great many knots, dragged out a large heavy roll of some dark stuff. "What do you call this?" said Joe. "Bed curtains?" "Ah," returned the woman, laughing and leaning forward on her crossed arms. "Bed curtains." "You don't mean to say you took 'em down, rings and all, with him lying there?" said Joe. "Yes, I do," replied the woman. "Why not?" "You were born to make your fortune," said Joe, "and you'll certainly do it." "I certainly shan't hold my hand when I can get anything in it by reaching it out, for the sake of such a man as he was, I promise you, Joe," returned the woman coolly. "Don't drop that oil upon the blankets now." "His blankets?" asked Joe. "Whose else's do you think?" replied the woman. "He isn't likely to take cold without them, I dare say." "I hope he didn't die of anything catching, eh?" said old Joe, stopping in his work and looking up. "Don't you be afraid of that," returned the woman. "I ain't so fond of his company that I'd loiter about him to such things, if he did. Ah, you may look through that shirt till your eyes ache, but you won't find a hole in it, nor a threadbare place. It's the best he had, and a fine one too. They'd have wasted it if it hadn't been for me." "What do you call wasting of it?" asked old Joe. "Putting it on him to be buried in, to be sure," replied the woman with a laugh. "Somebody was fool enough to do it, but I took it off again. If calico ain't good enough for such a purpose, it ain't good enough for anything. It's quite as becoming to the body. He can't look uglier than he did in that one." Scrooge listened to this dialogue in horror. As they sat grouped about their spoil, in the scanty light afforded by the old man's lamp, he viewed them with a detestation and disgust which could hardly have been greater, though they had been obscene demons, marketing the corpse itself. "Ha ha!" laughed the same woman when old Joe, producing a flannel bag with money in it, told out their several gains upon the ground. "This is the end of it, you see. He frightened everyone away from him when he was alive, to profit us when he was dead." "Spirit," said Scrooge, shuddering from head to foot. I see, I see. The case of this unhappy man might be my own. My life tends that way now. Merciful heaven, what is this?" He recoiled in terror, for the scene had changed, and now he almost touched a bed. A bare, uncurtained bed, on which, beneath a ragged sheet, there lay a something covered up, which thought it was dumb, announced itself in awful language. The room was very dark, too dark to be observed with any accuracy, though Scrooge glanced around it in obedience to a secret impulse, anxious to know what kind of room it was. A pale light, rising in the outer air, fell straight upon the bed, and on it, plundered and bereft, unwatched, unwept, uncared for, was the body of this man. Scrooge glanced towards the phantom. Its steady hand was pointed to the head. The cover was so carelessly adjusted that the slightest raising of it, the motion of a finger upon Scrooge's part, would have disclosed the face. He thought of it, felt how easy it would be to do, and longed to do it, but had no more power to withdraw the veil than to dismiss the spectre at his side. "O cold, cold, rigid, dreadful death, set up thine altar here, and dress it with such terrors as thou hast at thy command. For this is thy dominion, but of the loved, revered, and honored dead thou canst not turn one hair to thy dread purposes, or make one feature odious. It is not that the hand is heavy and will fall down when released, it is not that the heart and pulse are still, but that the hand was open, generous and true, the heart brave, warm and tender, and the pulse a man's. Strike, shadow, strike, and see his good deeds springing from the wound. So sow the world with life immortal. No voice pronounced these words in Scrooge's ears, and yet he heard them when he looked upon the bed. He thought, if this man could be raised up now, what would be his foremost thoughts? Avarice, hard dealing, griping cares? They have brought him to a rich end, truly. He lay in the dark, empty house with not a man, a woman, or a child to say he was kind to me in this or that, and for the memory of one kind word I will be kind to him. A cat was tearing at the door, and there was a sound of gnawing rats beneath the hearthstone. What they wanted in this room, in the room of death, and why they were so restless and disturbed, Scrooge did not dare to think. Spirit, he said, this is a dreadful place. In leaving it, I shall not leave its lesson. Trust me. Let us go. Still, the ghost pointed with an unmoved finger to the head. I understand you, Scrooge returned, and I would do it if I could, but I have not the power, Spirit, I have not the power. Again it seemed to look upon him. If there is any person in the town who feels emotion caused by this man's death, said Scrooge, quite agonized, show that person to me, Spirit, I beseech you. The phantom spread its dark robe before him for a moment like a wing, and withdrawing it, revealed a room by daylight where a mother and her children were. The phantom spread its dark robe before him for a moment like a wing. Sorry, I just read that. She was expecting someone, and with anxious eagerness, for she walked up and down the room, started at every sound, looked out from the window, glanced at the clock, tried, but in vain, to work with her needle, and could hardly bear the voices of her children in their play. At length the long-expected knock was heard. She hurried to the door and met her husband, a man whose face was careworn and depressed, though he was young. There was a remarkable expression in it now, a kind of serious delight of which he felt ashamed, and which he struggled to repress. He sat down to the dinner that had been hoarding for him by the fire, and when she asked him faintly what news, which was not until after a long silence, he appeared embarrassed how to answer. Is it good, she said, or bad? To help him. Bad, he answered. We are quite ruined? No, there is hope yet, Caroline. If he relents, she said, amazed, there is. Nothing is past hope if such a miracle has happened. He is past relenting, said her husband. He is dead. She was a mild and patient creature if her face spoke truth, but she was thankful in her soul to hear it, and she said so with clasped hands. She prayed forgiveness the next moment and was sorry, but the first was the emotion of her heart. What the half-drunken woman whom I told you of last night said to me when I tried to see him and obtain a week's delay, and what I thought was a mere excuse to avoid me, turns out to have been quite true. He was not only very ill, but dying, then. To whom will our debt be transferred? I don't know, but before that time we shall be ready with the money, and even though we were not, it would be bad fortune indeed to find so merciless a creditor in his successor. We may sleep tonight with light hearts, Caroline. Yes, soften it as they would, their hearts were lighter. The children's faces, hushed and clustered round to hear what they so little understood, were brighter, and it was a happier house for this man's death. The only emotion that the ghost could show him, caused by the event, was one of pleasure. Let me see some tenderness connected with a death, said Scrooge, or that dark chamber spirit which we left just now will be for ever present to me. Or that dark chamber spirit which we left just now will be for ever present for me. The ghost conducted him through several streets familiar to his feet, and as they went along, Scrooge looked here and there to find himself, but nowhere was he to be seen. They entered poor Bob Cratchit's house, the dwelling he had visited before, and found the mother and the children seated around the fire. quiet, very quiet. The noisy little Cratchits were as still as statues in one corner, and sat looking up at Peter, who had a book before him. The mother and her daughters were engaged in sewing, but surely they were very quiet. And he took a child and set him in the midst of them. Where had Scrooge heard those words? He had not dreamed them. The boy must have read them out as he and the spirit crossed the threshold. Why did he not go on? The mother laid her work upon the table and put her hand up to her face. "The color hurts my eyes," she said. "The color? Ah, poor Tiny Tim." "They're better now again," said Cratchit's wife. "It makes them weak by candlelight, and I wouldn't show weak eyes to your father when he comes home for the world. It must be near his time." Okay, let me drink some more water. It's already been 45 minutes. Oh, my voice is actually holding on quite well today. I think it must be all the exercise of just reading for these past few days. Okay, let's see. Yes, those vocal cords have had a workout. Yes, for real. Okay, past it rather, Peter answered, shutting up his book, but I think he has walked a little slower than he used these few last evenings, mother. They were very quiet again. At last she said, and in a steady, cheerful voice that only faltered once, I have known him walk with I have known him walk with Tiny Tim upon his shoulder very fast indeed. And so have I, cried Peter, often. And so have I, exclaimed another, so had all. But he was very light to carry, she resumed, intent upon her work, and his father loved him so that it was no trouble, no trouble. And there is your father at the door. She hurried out to meet him, and little Bob in his comforter, he had need of it, poor fellow, came in. His tea was ready for him on the hob, and they all tried who should help him to it most. Then the two young Cratchits got upon his knees, and laid each child a little cheek against his face, as if they said, "Don't mind it, father, don't be grieved." Bob was very cheerful with them, and spoke pleasantly to all the family. He looked at the work upon the table, and praised the industry and speed of Mrs. Cratchit and the girls. They would be done long before Sunday, he said. "Sunday? You went today, then, Robert?" said his wife. "Yes, my dear," returned Bob. "I wish you could have gone. It would have done you good to see how green a place it is. But you'll see it often. I promised him that I would walk there on a Sunday." "My little, little child," cried Bob, "my little child." He broke down all at once. He couldn't help it. If he could have helped it, he and his child would have been farther apart, perhaps, than they were. He left the room and went upstairs into the room above, which was lighted cheerfully and hung with Christmas. There was a chair set close beside the child, and there were signs of someone having been there lately. Poor Bob sat down in it, and when he had thought a little and composed himself, he kissed the little face. He was reconciled to what had happened, and went down again quite happy. They drew about the fire and talked, the girls and mother working still. Bob told them of the extraordinary kindness of Mr. Scrooge's nephew, whom he had scarcely seen but once, and who, meeting him in the street that day, and seeing that he looked just a little down, you know, said Bob, inquired what had happened to distress him. On which, said Bob, for he is the pleasantest spoken gentleman you ever heard, I told him, "I'm heartily sorry for it, Mr. Cratchit," he said, "and heartily sorry for your good wife. By the by, no he ever knew that I don't know. By the by, how he ever knew that I don't know." "No, knew what, my dear?" "Why, that you were a good wife," replied Bob. "Everybody knows that," said Peter. "Very well observed, my boy," cried Bob. "I hope they do. Heartily sorry," he said, "for your good wife. If I can be of service to you in any way," he said, giving me his card, "that's where I live. Pray come to me. Now it wasn't, cried Bob, for the sake of anything he might be able to do for us, so much as for his kind way, that this was quite delightful. It really seemed as if he had known our Tiny Tim and felt with us. I'm sure he's a good soul, said Mrs. Cratchit. You would be sure of it, my dear, returned Bob, if you saw and spoke to him. I shouldn't be at all surprised. Mark what I say, if he got Peter a better situation. Only hear that, Peter, said Mrs. Cratchit. And then, cried one of the girls, Peter will be keeping company with someone and setting up for himself. Get along with you, retorted Peter, grinning. It's just as likely as not, said Bob. One of these days, though there's plenty of time for that, my dear. But however and whenever we part from one another, I am sure we shall none of us forget poor Tiny Tim. Shall we, or his first parting that there was among us? Never, father, cried they all. And I know, said Bob, I know, my dears, that when we recollect how patient and how mild he was, although he was a little, little child, we shall not quarrel easily among ourselves and forget poor Tiny Tim in doing it. No, never, father, they all cried again. I am very happy, said little Bob, I am very happy. Mrs. Cratchit kissed him, and his daughters kissed him, the two young Cratchits kissed him, and Peter and himself shook hands. Spirit of Tiny Tim, thy childish essence was from God. Spectre, said Scrooge, something informs me that our parting moment is at hand. I know it, but I know not how. Tell me what man that was whom we saw lying dead. The ghost of Christmas yet to come conveyed him as before, though at a different time, he thought. Indeed, there seemed no order in these latter visions, save that they were in the future, into the resorts of business men, but showed him not himself. Indeed, the spirit did not stay for anything, but went straight on, as to the end just now desired, until besought by Scrooge to tarry for a moment. This court, said Scrooge, through which we hurry now, where my place of occupation is and has been for a length of time, I see the house. Let me behold what I shall be in days to come. The spirit stopped. The hand was pointed elsewhere. The house is yonder, Scrooge exclaimed. Why do you point away? The inexorable finger underwent no change. Scrooge hastened to the window of his office and looked in. It was an office still, but not his. The furniture was not the same, and the figure in the chair was not himself. The phantom pointed as before. He joined it once again, and wondering why and whither he had gone, accompanied it until they reached an iron gate. He paused to look round before entering. A churchyard. Here, then, the wretched man whose name he had now to learn lay underneath the ground. It was a worthy place, walled in by houses, overrun by grass and weeds, the growth of vegetation's death, not life, choked up with too much burying, fat with repleted appetite. A worthy place. The spirit stood among the graves and pointed down to one. He advanced towards it trembling. The phantom was exactly as it had been, but he dreaded that he saw new meaning in its solemn shape. Before I draw nearer to that stone to which you point, said Scrooge, answer me one question. Are these the shadows of the things that will be, or are they shadows of the things that may be only? Still the ghost pointed downward to the grave by which it stood. Men's courses will foreshadow certain ends, to which, if persevered in, they must lead, said Scrooge. But if the courses be departed from, the ends will change. Say it is thus with what you show me. The spirit was immovable as ever. Scrooge crept towards it, trembling as he went, and following the finger, read upon the stone of the neglected grave his own name, Ebenezer Scrooge. Am I that man who lay upon the bed? He cried upon his knees. The finger pointed from the grave to him, and back again. No, spirit, oh no, no. The finger still was there. Spirit, he cried, tight clutching at its robe, hear me. I am not the man I was. I will not be the man I must have been but for this intercourse. Why show me this, if I am past all hope? For the first time the hand appeared to shake. Good spirit, he pursued, as down upon the ground he fell before it, your nature intercedes for me and pities me, assures me that I may yet change these shadows you have shown me, by an altered life. The kind hand trembled. I will honor Christmas in my heart and try to keep it all the year. I will live in the past, the present, and the future. The spirits of all three shall strive within me. I will not shut out the lessons that they teach. Oh, tell me I may sponge away the writing on this stone. In his agony, he caught the spectral hand. It sought to free itself, but he was strong in his entreaty and detained it. The spirit, stronger yet, repulsed him. Holding up his hands in a last prayer to have his fate reversed, he saw an alteration in the phantom's hood and dress. It shrunk, collapsed, and dwindled down into a bedpost. And that was the end of stave 4. We just have stave 5 left, which is about 10 more pages. So I think I will go ahead with it because I'm telling you, my voice is surprisingly fine today. And I'll just go ahead with it and then we'll get to finishing the Palia house. So stave 5 is called the end of it. Yes, and the bedpost was his own. The bed was his own, the room was his own. Best and happiest of all, the time before him was his own, to make amends in. I will live in the past, the present, and the future, Scrooge repeated as he scrambled out of bed. The spirits of all three shall strive within me. Oh, Jacob Marley, heaven and the Christmas time be praised for this. I say it on my knees, old Jacob, on my knees. He was so fluttered and so glowing with his good intentions that his broken voice would scarcely answer to his call. He had been sobbing violently in his conflict with the spirit, and his face was wet with tears. They are not torn down, cried Scrooge, folding one of his They are not torn down, cried Scrooge, folding one of his curtains in his arms. They are not torn down, rings and all. They are here. I am here. The shadows of the things that would have been may be dispelled. They will be. I know they will. His hands were busy with his garments all this time, turning them inside out, putting them on upside down, tearing them, mislaying them, making them parties to every kind of extravagance. I don't know what to do, cried Scrooge, laughing and crying in the same breath, and making a perfect coon of himself with his stockings. That's a word I've never seen before. I am as light as a feather. I am as happy as an angel. I am as merry as a schoolboy. I am as giddy as a drunken man. A Merry Christmas to everybody. A Happy New Year to all the world. Hallo here. Whoop. Hallo. He had frisked into the sitting room and was now standing there perfectly winded. There is the saucepan that the gruel was in, cried Scrooge, starting off again and going round the fireplace. There's the door by which the ghost of Jacob Marley entered. There's the corner where the ghost of Christmas present sat. There's the window where I saw the wandering spirits. It's all right, it's all true, it's all happened. Ha ha. Really, for a man who had been out of practice for so many years, it was a splendid laugh, a most illustrious laugh, the father of a long, long line of brilliant laughs. I don't know what day of the month it is, said Scrooge. I don't know how long I have been among the spirits. I don't know anything. I'm quite a baby. Never mind. I don't care. I'd rather be a baby. Hallo, whoop, hallo here. He was checked in his transports by the churches ringing over the lustiest peals he had ever heard. Clash, clash, hammer, ding dong, bell. Bell, ding dong, hammer, clang, clash. Oh, glorious, glorious. Running to the window, he opened it and put out his head. No fog, no mist. Clear, bright, jovial, stirring cold. Cold, piping for the blood to dance to. Golden sunlight, heavenly sky, sweet fresh air, merry bells. Oh, glorious, glorious. What's today? Cried Scrooge, calling downward to a boy in Sunday clothes, who perhaps had loitered in to look about him. Eh? Returned the boy with all his might of wonder. What's today, my fine fellow? Said Scrooge. Today, replied the boy. Why, Christmas Day. It's Christmas Day, said Scrooge to himself. I haven't missed it. The spirits have done it all in one night. They can do anything they like. Of course they can, of course they can. Hello, my fine fellow. Hello, returned the boy. Do you know the poulterers in the next street but one, at the corner? Scrooge inquired. I should hope I did, replied the lad. Ah, an intelligent boy, said Scrooge. A remarkable boy. Do you know whether they've sold the prize turkey that was hanging up there? Not the little prize turkey, the big one? What, the one as big as me? Returned the boy. What a delightful boy, said Scrooge. It's a pleasure to talk to him. Yes, my buck. It's hanging there now, replied the boy. It is? Said Scrooge. Go and buy it. Walk, er, exclaimed the boy. No, no, said Scrooge. I am in earnest. Go and buy it, and tell him to bring it here, that I may give them the directions where to take it. Come back with the man, and I'll give you a shilling. Come back with him in less than 5 minutes, and I'll give you half a crown. The boy was off like a shot. He must have had a steady hand at a trigger who could have got a shot off half so fast. I'll send it to Bob Cratchit's, whispered Scrooge, rubbing his hands and splitting with the laugh. He shan't know who sends it. It's twice the size of Tiny Tim. Joe Miller never made such a joke at sending it to Joe Miller never made such a joke as sending it to Bob's will be. The hand in which he wrote the address was not a steady one, but write it he did, somehow, and went downstairs to open the street door, ready for the coming of the poulterer's man. As he stood there, waiting his arrival, the knocker caught his eye. I shall love it as long as I live, cried Scrooge, patting it with his hand. I scarcely ever looked at it before. What an honest expression it has in its face. It's a wonderful knocker. Here's the turkey. Hallo, whoop. How are you? Merry Christmas. It was a turkey. He never could have stood upon his legs, that bird. He would have snapped he would have snapped them short off in a minute, like sticks of sealing wax. Why, it's impossible to carry that to Camden Town, said Scrooge. You must have a cab. The chuckle with which he said this, and the chuckle with which he paid for the turkey, and the chuckle with which he paid for the cab, and the chuckle with which he recompensed the boy, were only to be exceeded by the chuckle with which he sat down breathless in his chair again, and chuckled till he cried. Shaving was not an easy task, for his hand continued to shake very much, and shaving requires attention, even when you don't dance while you are at it. But he had cut the end of his but if he had cut the end of his nose off, he would have put a piece of sticking plaster over it, and been quite satisfied. He dressed himself all in his best, and at last got out into the streets. The people were by this time pouring forth, as he had seen them with the ghost of Christmas present, and walking with his hands behind him, Scrooge regarded every one with a delighted smile. He looked so irresistibly pleasant, in a word, that 3 or 4 good-humoured fellows said, "Good morning, sir. A Merry Christmas to you." And Scrooge said often afterwards that, of all the blithe sounds he had ever heard, those were the blithest in his ears. He had not gone far when, coming on towards him, he beheld a portly gentleman who had walked into his counting-house the day before, and said, "Scrooge and Marley's, I believe." It set a pang across his heart to think that this old gentleman would look upon him when they met. But he knew what path lay straight before him, and he took it. "My dear sir," said Scrooge, quickening his pace, and taking the old gentleman by both his hands, "how do you do? I hope you succeeded yesterday. It was very kind of you. A Merry Christmas to you, sir." "Mr. Scrooge?" "Yes," said Scrooge, "that is my name, and I fear it may not be pleasant to you. Allow me to ask your pardon, and will you have the goodness—" Here, here Scrooge whispered in his ear. "Lord bless me!" cried the gentleman, as if his breath were taken away. "My dear Mr. Scrooge, are you serious?" "If you please," said Scrooge, "not a farthing less. A great many back payments are included in it, I assure you. Will you do me that favor?" "My dear sir," said the other, shaking hands with him, "I don't know what to say to such—" "Don't say anything, please," retorted Scrooge. "Come and see me. Will you come and see me?" "I will," cried the old gentleman, and it was clear he meant to do it. "Thank'ee," said Scrooge. "I'm much obliged to you. I thank you 50 times. Bless you." He went to church, and walked about the streets, and watched the people hurrying to and fro. Oh, I've been idle. Well, that didn't happen yesterday, though. Let me get back. Let me get back and sit in front of my fireplace as we finish these last like 5 pages. I believe that's all we have left from it. He went to church and walked about the streets and watched the people hurrying to and fro, and patted the children on the head and questioned beggars, and looked down into the kitchens of houses and up to the windows, and found that everything could yield him pleasure. He had never dreamed that any walk, that anything, could give him so much happiness. In the afternoon he turned his steps towards his nephew's house. He passed the door a dozen times before he had the courage to go up and knock, but he made a dash and did it. "Is your master at home, my dear?" said Scrooge to the girl. Nice girl, very. "Yes, sir. Where is he, my love?" "He's in the dining room, sir, along with mistress. I'll show you upstairs, if you please." "Thank ye. He knows me," said Scrooge, with his hand already on the dining room clock. Lock, sorry, not clock. "I'll go in there, my dear." He turned it gently and sidled his face in round the door. They were looking at the table, which was spread out in great array, for these young bookkeepers are always nervous on such points, and like to see that everything is right. "Fred," said Scrooge. Dear heart alive, how his niece by marriage started! Scrooge had forgotten for the moment about her sitting in the corner with the footstool, or he wouldn't have done it on any account. "Why, bless my soul!" cried Fred. "Who's that?" "It's I, your Uncle Scrooge. I have come to dinner. Will you let me in, Fred?" Let him in! It is a mercy he didn't shake his arm off. He was at home in 5 minutes. Nothing could be heartier. His niece looked just the same. So did Topper when he came. So did the plump sister when she came. So did everyone when they came. Wonderful party, wonderful games, wonderful unanimity, wonderful happiness. And here is the illustration of them of him coming over to Fred's. But he was early at the office next morning. Oh, he was early there. If he could if he could only be there first and catch Bob Cratchit coming late, that was the thing he had set his heart upon. And he did it. Yes, he did. The clock struck 9. No Bob. A quarter past. No Bob. He was full 18 minutes and a half behind his time. Scrooge sat with his door wide open, that he might see him come into the tank. His hat was off before he opened the door, his comforter too. He was on his stool in a jiffy, driving away with his pen, as if he were trying to overtake 9 o'clock. "Hallo!" growled Scrooge in his accustomed voice, as near as he could feign it. "What do you mean by coming here at this time of day?" "I'm very sorry, sir," said Bob. "I am behind my time." "You are?" repeated Scrooge. "Yes, I think you are. Step this way, sir, if you please." "It's only once a year, sir," pleaded Bob, appearing from the tank. "It shall not be repeated. I was making rather merry yesterday, sir." "Now, I'll tell you what, my friend," said Scrooge. "I'm not going to stand this sort of thing any longer, and therefore," he continued, leaping from his stool and giving Bob such a dig in the waistcoat that he staggered back into the tank again, "and therefore I am about to raise your salary." Bob trembled and got a little nearer to the ruler. He had a momentary idea of knocking Scrooge down with it, holding him, and calling to the people in the court for help and a straight waistcoat. "A Merry Christmas, Bob," said Scrooge with an earnestness that could not be mistaken, as he clapped him on the back. "A merrier Christmas, Bob, my good fellow, than I have given you for many a year. I'll raise your salary and endeavour to assist your struggling family, and we will discuss your affairs this very afternoon over a Christmas bowl of smoking bishop, Bob. Make up the fires and buy another coat scuttle before you dot another I, Bob Cratchit." And we have what I believe to be the last illustration here. Scrooge was better than his word. He did it all and infinitely more. And to Tiny Tim, who did not die, he was a second father. He became as good a friend, as good a master, and as good a man as the good old city knew, or any other good old city, town, or borough in the good old world. Some people laughed to see the alteration in him, but he let them laugh, and little heeded them, for he was wise enough to know that nothing ever happened on this globe for good, at which some people did not have their fill of laughter in the outset. And knowing that such as these would be blind anyway, he thought it quite as well that they should wrinkle up their eyes in grins as have the malady in less attractive forms. His own heart laughed, and that was quite enough for him. He had no further intercourse with spirits, but lived upon the total abstinence principle ever afterwards, and it was always said of him that he knew how to keep Christmas well, if any man alive possessed the knowledge. May that may that be truly said of us and all of us, and so, as Tiny Tim observed, God bless us every one. And that was A Christmas Carol. We are Some of the dialogue towards the end of the book is one to one in the movie, which is interesting. In the Muppet movie, you mean, right? Oh, I'll be curious to see that then. Because you said it was longer overall than the book, so they must have added some stuff in. But I'm looking forward to see what the differences are. Um, I mean, just as a general, like what I think about the book. Um, I think it's a cute read. I mean, I'm not gonna rate it very, like, I'm not gonna go very hard on it because I think it accomplishes what it means to. Um, I do like how the thing I like the most in how it was written is that he changes before he sees himself that he is the man that died. Because I think if that was the point in which he would change, that would really take away from how genuine his change would be, if that makes sense. Like if all that leads to his change would be, the fear of dying alone and with no one to care for him, if that was the catalyst to the change, I think that would be just not good writing. But I think, yeah, it's a gradual change rather than a sudden one. Exactly. And I think that's the value of it because we can see him changing bit by bit, and that's what I like the most. Um, I do feel that it's it's old-fashioned, right? And I don't just mean in the words that it uses, but in this perception that Christmas is all about being very happy. Which don't get me wrong, Christmas it does have some joy, but I think nowadays we are shifting the perception in society that it's, maybe a time for I don't know how to explain this. Like, for example, I don't know if you know this, but the rate of depression skyrockets around Christmas and New Year's Eve. It is the time of the year with one of the highest rates of depression, for example. Um, which is very interesting to know, right? Because we expect the holidays to be, oh, so happy. But they're not. They're also a time when people remember how lonely they are, for example, because it's supposed to be a time where everyone gathers together and people are not alone, right? But some people can be. Some people can feel lonely even within while having a big family and friends. And I think it's the time when we are confronted with these things. Um, so yeah, I do think just my 2 cents on this. I do think the best approach with Christmas is just feel whatever it is you're feeling. You know, it's okay to feel sad too on Christmas. It's okay to be depressed. It's you're not meant to be this beam of light. It is good, however, to try to do things that give you genuine pleasure, like genuine joy, though. Um, I think that's a good approach to it, to try and make it special, but special in your own way, what it is that you deem special rather than what society deems that it's special. And yeah, I just want to say that it is okay to not be like always happy and jolly during the holidays. I think that's okay too, and it's very okay to be super happy and jolly. It's just you do you, basically. That's what I mean to say, and I think if we don't force people to be a certain way, that would be better for everyone, basically. Um, but yes, I will say that some of the words that are in this, like I know most of the words, but a lot of them are used differently than we use them today. It's a vocabulary that's like not an old vocabulary, but words change their meanings in time. I can't give you an example from the top of my head. There are many, many words that I found here that were used. Like I was reading the sentence and I was like, what am I reading? Like I'm I'm processing all these words separately, but I don't know what they mean together, type of thing. Okay, let me have some more water and then we Palia clutter time. I'm just gonna add what I know, because yes. For one thing, I want to add a pile of like plates on this table that's in front of me. And I don't know exactly. I mean, I'm just gonna do it until I finish with this, basically. But I don't want to take too long either. So let me just think fast, basically. Yeah, just make all that clutter from the gourmet line. Go to main plot. And if I could see here, where is the plate? Okay, so this is the dessert plate pile, but I want the dinner plates. So I need more ceramic. That is okay, I can go get more. A lot more. Um, and then I'll also add some bottles. But clay first. That is... And it's 7 a.m., so the black market isn't open. And actually, what am I supposed to even do at the black market? Because I have no gold whatsoever. So completely out of it. Unless I can get some, stones from like nodes on the way. I wonder if I'll be done in like 40 minutes. Let's see. Normally, I don't really like to split my time in such a way that, okay, I allocate like a very specific interval for gaming specifically. I don't like that. But because it's, Christmas is around the corner, we're gonna celebrate it tomorrow. And I still have just a few things that I have to do. And unfortunately, because I was planning to make sugar cookies for Christmas, I didn't manage to do that like before Christmas. But I will still make them, just probably on like the 25th, 26th. Like when all the family stuff is done and dealt with, all the social stuff, when everything like that is done, that's when I'll make the cookies as well. Is there some more clay that I don't think so. I think I can just go straight here. Also, this is the last day with the funny Christmas hat, so I hope you're enjoying it. And I hope the next year we can upgrade to a bit of a fancier one. There's so much clay here, thankfully. I mean, I'm telling you, I think almost everyone is busy prepping. I'm here in Palia getting clay. I see some copper too. Let me get it. Also, one of these days I have to sit down and think about like the future of like what I want to do, what sort of content, videos I want to do going forward. What I know is that I'm definitely opening that like the Twitch streaming as well. I've been wanting to do that and I was hoping that I would manage before the new year came along, and maybe I will actually have a few days left. So maybe it is possible. Nice. What level am I? 138. I also have a video idea for Palia, which I think I will do that. I don't know if next stream or not the first next stream, but the second next stream. Don't even know if I should spoil it or not, but I'm thinking, okay, you know what? I'll spoil it. I can't. I can't keep surprises. I get too excited. I think this should be fun. I was thinking of making like a tier list for furniture items. That's my thought. I don't know what will come of it, if it's gonna be fun or not, but I want to do that for a stream. I want to try. I've been thinking about that while we were, decorating, because I like some of the furniture pieces much more than others. So I just think it might be a fun, cute idea. Let's see, can I get a sunstone from here? That would be so helpful to my finances. To my 930. Oh my god, I'm below 1k even. Well, no, but I got a silver ore, so I'll take that too. Okay, well, I think this is all the clay we're getting at the moment. Let me return. And while this is... Let me think. Maybe I can make some of the bottles and stuff. But what do I do with the bookshelf? I watched videos to try and do a little bit of research, but from what I can see, people are building their custom shelves. They're not necessarily using the furniture bookshelves. They're building them with the blocks, which is much more versatile, but also much more complicated, and I don't have the patience to learn that right now. Maybe I never will, I don't know. I'm not very patient when it comes to building. I like decorating, but building, not really. So, and I think the problem is that here in Palia, decorating is very dependent upon building, because you use building to create the room's layout as you want it to be, basically. Okay, let me see if I can find... I think I have some bottles or... Bottle. Yes, I do. Let's try and use them. Maybe get one more teacup, put it somewhere. Put some of these things in that I know I'm not gonna be... You know what, I can sell this bee, which will get me to over 1k. Let's go. So sad. I haven't been this broke in Palia probably since I started playing it, to be perfectly honest. So I gotta rebuild my funds. Okay, so I have the bottles. Do I? No, I don't think I need the wallpaper anymore. I also have a quartz to sell. Let me sell that too. Okay, so bottles. So I wanted to pile this one. I want two of these because I want to put one in the kitchen, one in on the living room table. Should we get a spoon as well? Let's get the spoon. Gourmet spoon. Pretty sure I should just craft the whole thing. The whole set, preferably. I have the fork left. Let's do the fork too. So, gourmet fork. Oh, no, the knife, sorry. That's it? Just the dessert bowl. Are these really tiny? Oh, that's so cute to think. Well, when I get the rest of the ceramic, I guess. And let me see if there's anything else, once again, that I'm missing that I could be using. Maybe some of those lamps. You know what? Let me try them first and see if I have a tiny one left, but it won't fit. Maybe some tiny plants like this one is. Let's make one more because I know I've used the one I already have. Perfect. The orchid is pretty too. Okay, well, almost checked everything. Might need some more like mugs. Those are cups. This is the mug. Let's make one mug too. Three. It gave me 3 experience. That's amazing. Okay. Okie dokie. Should I use some more candles? Never too many candles, right? And maybe... Yeah, I think I will when I get the rest of the ceramic. This would be cute. I still think I should put a sunflower somewhere. Some pots, perhaps. Oh, I need the rest of the ceramic in any case too. Oh, and the small lamp requires... Everything requires ceramic. I can make all the Palcraft stuff. Paltech, sorry, but I don't wanna put them in this build specifically. Okay, then once again, let me see if I have anything left in here that I can use. Maybe let's put like a bonsai or something as well somewhere. I'll approach it differently. So far, I went at it just looking through this and being like, oh, what fits the winter light? But I realized that if I just go with items that are in that color scheme or whatever, there's just not enough. So I have to think about this more broadly and just pick up any clutter object that I see and see if I can make it work, basically, somewhere. Maybe some trophies. Maybe we can put some trophies on the shelves. I don't think that's a bad idea. Well, my inventory's full now, but I think that might give us a bit of clutter. You know what? Let me do this. Let me put everything. So these plates, first and foremost, here on the table. Okay. Like that. Then with this pile, I'm gonna come over here. Put them somewhere as well, just to create more clutter. I have spoon. I could do... Okay, I need to change these plates. This is just so... Should I leave them like this just because it's really funny? Okay, I will let you people vote. Big plates on the table or small plates. Let's go. If anyone has an opinion on this, please share it so we can... Okay, let me think. Where would this go? What could I do with this? Just here, I guess. Just here, where I wanted to put it. Just don't want it to clip. Small plate, everyone who visits is on a strict diet. Okay. Okay, let's make that. So basically you can only get one spoonful. That's it. Okay, I will get one more spoon then. No, I'm thinking I should put a tea set before this. I don't know why, that feels a bit more appropriate. I can't put them there, can I? Okay, on the ground then. I'll have a mug here, and I would like to craft another tea set if I don't have the spare one. I don't really like this plant over here. I feel like it doesn't work. Plant, where should you go? Maybe at the mirror. I can put this candle and change that a little bit. Be like this. The candle. Turn the candle on. Okay. I put so many candles here. Should I put another plant there? Kinda don't want to repeat the same plants though. Ah, having a plant here would be cute, but the game doesn't let me put it on the window. It says it's not a valid placement. Well, it is to me. You can put that in there. So I can't put a book in here, but I can put that. And it clips. It doesn't even work, but I can put that. A paleologic. I don't know what to say about that, really. Wait, this fits in here? Does this work? I can't turn it on? It's weird, because I can't... It theoretically fits, but... Oh! Oh! I'm not a big fan. I said oh as if, oh, that's good, but... Okay. Added some more stuff. I don't know what to do with the bookcases. Like they... I can put books again! Amazing. Maybe some trophies. Oh my god, the trophies are huge. They are big. They don't fit anywhere. I wish we had more stuff that actually fits. I think having just books is a little bit bland. Oh, no, accidentally. Uh-oh. Can I move that? No, the game doesn't want to let me move them until I put down all of them, which is a little bit weird as it is, but... I don't like them so perfectly aligned, but can't do much without using like glitches and stuff. So for now, we're just gonna have to roll with that and see if I find anything that actually fits in there. Like bottles. Why would you have a bottle in your bookshelf? I've actually no idea, but Palia is giving us the option to have that. This bigger bottle. Oh, we can have it there. This is medium. Hmm. How about we put this on the table? There we go. I don't like this. Okay, maybe I need another large bottle. I don't think I'm gonna be using the trophies. I just don't really feel like they work. Wish I could put stuff on these, but I can't. Maybe with glitches or something. Hmm. Okay, I don't know where to place that. Should we? I think I am gonna put them properly. So I need to make another knife and another spoon. There we go. Can I use him anywhere? Let's see. Oh, he's so cute. Doesn't have a. Oh, this is the face. I was like, can I put him here? Good, okay. That's where his place is. Now, time to go back and see if I can get more bottles. Okay, I'm not using the trophies. Then, let's see, what else can I pick up? Maybe the camping compass can go something, even if I haven't found a place for it yet. What about the cozy cafe small curtains? They might work for the kitchen specifically. I forgot I kept them for that. Hmm. I was looking for a lamp that I'm pretty sure I have. Unless I placed it down in my other house, which is possible. Makeshift chopping block. What am I looking for? Oh, this one's so cute. That potato pod. Lamp. I think I placed it down. What else would I be using? Oh yes, more candles. No, but these are spooky candles. I need to craft more of the winter-like candles. But first, let me look for the lamp. This homestead desk lamp, I think this would be very cute to put somewhere. And if I look at the other lamp that is like the homestead small lamp, maybe I can find a spot for it too. I'm not sure though. I wanted more bottles, right? Oh yeah, and a tea set. I wanted one more tea set. I'll prioritize that then. And then a spoon, right? One more spoon and one more knife, I think it was. Okay. But I need to wait for more clay. Wait, can I put some in the other smelter? I think it might be faster if I half. Where's my... It's in my inventory now. Yeah, I can make it like half-half. And then we'll get double the amount in the same time. Okay, so let me put everything down. I love this potato pod. I think I'll put him up here. He's like a pirate. He's so funny. Perfect. And another one. Can I put you on this other bookshelf? Right here. Okay, a bit more to the front because he feels a little bit stranded there. Like that. Okay. Now for this lamp. Oh, it's so pretty. I love this lamp. Let me think. Where could I use you? Not on the shelves. Maybe on one of these tables? What about here on this table? Instead of the plant? Maybe I don't need so many candles in here. I feel like now it looks silly. Now that I look at it. Maybe one on either end would be enough. Like this. Maybe here on the table. We can have another one. Okay. Plant is so big though. I mean, we could put it on the shelf. I mean, why not? Oh yes, before I forget, here's where I want my set to be. Right in front of this. What do I want the... sort of like this. Something like that. How big is this one? Pretty big. I think this should go on the table. Okay. Oh yes, and my... Perfect. Oh, I left this plates here. Do the curtains work for this? They do! That's so cute! Oh my god, I love that. I love it. I need another one for this other window, 100%. Okay, let me make some more. But let me put down the rest first. What can I actually... I can. Bit more to the back, I think. Just a little bit more. Two little more. Why is it so to the back if I... This is... I'll just leave it like that. Something like that is what I'm thinking. Now, this I'm pretty sure is way too big, isn't it? Yeah. I don't even know where I would put this. Or I should. What if I put it on this shelf? So if I take that candle... Would it fit? I think I tried it before and it doesn't. No? Yeah. It does not fit on the on the shelf. I think it needs like a separate table. Do I have space for one? Maybe here at the window I could have like a small nightstand to put that on. Or next to it. A coffee table perhaps. Okay, wait, I have too many ideas and I'll forget them. What about this? Is it a bit... No, I think that is actually straight. Okay. You won't. The candle doesn't work. Or does it? I mean, it's not very practical, though, I have to say. That would be set on fire in no time, but let's do it. It gives a cozy vibe. I like it. Let me put one in this other shelf as well. It burns through the... Wait. Oh, no. So that's the only... Will it fit there? It's a bit awkward, like it burns through the top of the bookshelf. Just a little bit awkward. Hmm. Oh, I think I'll just put it up here, honestly. Put it back up here. For now. That is what I can do. Okay, the second... Let me see the second curtain. If it's called a curtain, I don't know if it's curtain, drape. Let's look for them all. This. Oh no, I need 4 more fabric. Going off to Tish to ask her for fabric. Hey, you know what? I think I can get just a little bit more clay on the way. Just a little bit more. Oh, Tish first. I'm so excited to try some, I have some chocolate. I don't know how to explain this. Like here, we put candy on the Christmas tree. Not anymore, but like especially households that have children do that. And it's like a chocolate. It's more so chocolate. It's not candy. It's chocolate with fillings. And I'm excited to try the one I bought. It has like, what were the fillings? Like apple, coconut, and something else. There are 3 types in it. What was it, like 4 fabric or 5? Uh-oh. I'll buy 5. That's how much I can afford. No more fabric. And actually, you know what? I'm not gonna make more ceramic because I don't really have time to use it anyway, so no point. Just gonna go straight home. Get some more water. Okay, so once again, curtain, cozy cafe, small curtains, so cute. All right. And just some, what was it that I wanted? One tiny lamp, right? Home said small lamp. I also wanted some more like bottles and such. If I look for a bottle, Gilma Horn, Homestead Tall bottle. I feel like this is what I want right now. And I can also make like a green smaller bottle. That's pretty much it with what I have. So let's do this. The final pieces. It's still a bit... No, wait, wrong house. It is still a bit more empty than I would want it to be, honestly. Like some of these shelves aren't, you know, full of stuff, but I think it's really the best I can do at the moment with what I have. So, what? Why is the game trying to place them like this? Um, can I Palia this? No, no, not even. Yes, like this. I do want to try something though with like a tiny, not, should I do nightstand? Let's try a nightstand, but it might be too little. I'll try two of them, or alternatively something like a coffee table, or just like a tinier table. That one's not tiny. I remember being very surprised at how big this one is. Okay. Yeah, I just want to try to play with um the kitchen, like under the window. I'm curious if I can fit uh something here. Like a nightstand is too small. It looks a bit funny, but maybe. How do you even, what's the correct orientation for this? So big. Okay, that's not gonna be on there though, but maybe the plant instead. Maybe that's enough. Like the nightstand there instead of a bit. Let me try. Let me experiment since I. Let's see with the coffee table. But see, the coffee table is big enough that it doesn't make sense because you couldn't walk like there. This nightstand is even smaller. How about, does this look better? Sort of. I think it does. Okay, and I'll place this under the window then. Not clipping. And you place a bit closer to the window, like that. Okay, a bit more centered or very not centered. Okay, like that. Mm, like that, but without clipping. Perfect. Now I wanted a big bottle on the table, somewhat centered, like this. Why is it white? Interesting. And I wanted to see. I think I tried before and it doesn't fit there, does it? And this is the small one. Gee. This fits here. But it makes it look very, how should I say, like, because it barely, they barely fit. Looks a bit crowded. Oh, that's cute actually. I love the way that looks on the... Oh, that's cute. Okay, that's good placement, I would say. That was a good idea. Right. And I think this is gonna be it. Let me revisit anything to, like, I hope I haven't missed something important. I don't know about curtains here, like, until I learn how to adjust them so that they fit. I'm not gonna be using curtains on um, these windows, but I think I'll eliminate this window here. Will it put everything? You know what? I'll just let it be there because I have a feeling it will take all my furniture off on this side. So for now, we're leaving it here. I am probably gonna build a room there and then it will have to go. And then in here, I would have preferred to have more in the pantry specifically, but I don't know what the game allows me to put in there because the 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 food can't go in there. It doesn't let me put it in there. Oh, or I'm wrong. Now it's working. Yesterday when I tried, it wasn't. I'm very happy that it's working now. Perfect. So much better now. Okay, that changes everything. See, that looks a bit more like there's more in the house, you know. Okay. Everything else, maybe that shelf should be filled there, but I have no idea what to put there at the moment, so I just won't put anything. Hey, I'm pretty happy with this, honestly. Yes, it can look a little bit more lived in, but should I make two tiny lamps, put them on each window like I did here in the bathroom? That's kind of cute. Maybe I don't want to get too repetitive. Maybe I'll keep it like it is at the moment. And here I put some more stuff on the bookshelves. It's still weird that this candle is burning through. Let me just put it more to the side. Like this, okay. It just burns through the wood. You can see the what is it called? The embers at the top. It's a bit weird, but I'll just leave it like this. Um, turn this on. Turn every candle here on. Can I? Nope, that one's just not. That one, the one at the back is just not gonna be on simply because, can I? No. See, this one's cursed. Just not going to happen. So I'll just keep it here as it was. Okay, so this is going to be my build for now. Okay, why doesn't this wall have a wallpaper anymore? What happened to the poor wallpaper? Poor wallpaper. Let me get it. And that will be the final touch. Okay, so what do we think? Is it acceptable? I'm pretty happy with this. Pretty happy. I think I have to adjust this too a little bit. I'm pretty happy with this, yeah. I think I did better than in the first build, so I can, you know, I sort of feel like I'm getting a little bit better. I still have a tendency to arrange everything on the margins and the middle of the room is literally empty, but you know, that takes more practice for me. Like that's that's a hard habit to break, but I think overall I'm very happy with this. I'm so happy with how it turned out. Super happy. Okay, so going back to my main plot. And now it's gonna take me so long to rebuild my fortune. We will make an interior designer review yet? No, never. I don't think so ever. But hey, not even a virtual one, but I did have a lot of fun with the build. Even the kitchen turned out to not be as bad as I thought it would be. At first I had my doubts, but once I figured out the approximate layout of the furniture, I was like, this is workable. This is doable. All right. So, for when it comes to future plans, I don't know exactly what we'll be doing on Saturday stream. I need to think about it. Either some more material gathering, perhaps um to, get some gold since I'm sitting at 280 gold. That's a possibility. Um and maybe we will start with the tier list like I said. Could be a thing too. I think one stream is enough for that though. So maybe we don't even need a stream, come to think of it. Maybe like 30 to 60 minutes are enough for that, and the rest of the time will be material gathering. So I will think about it in any case. And yeah, Merry Christmas to everyone who's celebrating, or Happy Holidays in case you're celebrating another like version. Also, thank you so much to everyone who took a little bit of their time to be here today. I know everyone's a busy bee at this time of the year. And yeah, thank you for everyone who lurked in the stream, as well as to Mark who actively chatted with me. And yeah, hope to see you all soon. I will be streaming on so we're skipping this Wednesday. However, I will be streaming on Saturday. So I hope to see you then. Bye bye everyone and take care. Thank you for the stream. Thank you for being here. Bye bye.